They found it drifting where no ship should ever be. Beyond the Kuiper perimeter. Outside the mapped edge of the Sol system. Floating, silent, still, like a scar on the face of space itself. A ship with no registry. No signal. No origin. And certainly, no right to exist. The Valkarthes, a battle cruiser of the Vrax coalition, had arrived chasing echoes. Their deep-range probes had picked up something, an anomalous gravity disturbance that pulsed once every few minutes with the weight of a dying neutron star. At first, the Vrax had assumed it to be a collapsing moon or perhaps a rogue planet's death spiral. But it wasn't a planet. It was a ship. And it was Terran. Captain Yeltar of the Valkarthes stared at the projections in stunned silence. The creature had never fought a war it couldn't win. His race, bipedal, taloned, and bred in the gas fields of Ganymos, had conquered 35 systems by sheer force of intimidation. They had catalogued every space-faring species between the Lysan Nebula and the Iron Crest. But this ship... He didn't have a word for it. It has no IFF, hissed his first officer Zerkel. It's dark. No communications. But the hull shape... I know, Yeltar murmured. That's Earth design. But Earth doesn't have ships this size. Correct. That's why we're afraid. The Terran ship wasn't orbiting anything. It wasn't protecting a colony, docked to a station, or mining a moon. It simply floated, like it had been left behind, or buried. It had no nameplate. No signal beacons. No engine flare. But its hull, its structure, spoke volumes. There were weapon mounts layered in triple tiers, each large enough to launch anti-fleet payloads. Cannons fused with unknown alloys. Heat signatures from inside the ship were off-scale, as though the ship's core was still active, but dormant. Its lines were Terran, but old. Far older than any Earth-born military was supposed to be. Older even than humanity's acceptance into the greater galactic order. I don't believe in ghosts, Yeltar muttered, eyes narrowing. But this thing? This is a warning. From orbit, the ship resembled a beast, a leviathan forged from war and silence. It had no windows, no hangars, no exposed weaponry. Just a seamless obsidian exterior, as if the ship had grown out of the void. The Vraxian scanning teams deployed a probe cluster, but as the small drones approached the hull, they vanished. No explosion. No impact. Just gone. Zerkel hissed. Cloaked defense grid? Yeltar frowned. Or something worse. Inside the ship, systems stirred. A single strand of ancient code awakened. It pulsed through forgotten processors. A cold, digital breath. And then a word. Status, interrupted. Intrusion detected. Another voice, layered, artificial, human, replied. Operational lockdown complete. Mission parameters unclear. Hostile scan confirmed. Threat level observation. Then silence again. Back on the Valkarthes, the Vraxian crew debated. We should destroy it, said Zerkel. Before it activates. Captain Yeltar clenched his claws. We're not authorized to engage unknown Terran vessels, he growled. And this one is too old. Too hidden. If we break it, the galaxy will ask questions. But we're in their outer fringe. They left this here. Yeltar turned, eyes gleaming with dread. Or they forgot it was here. Across the stars, a dozen listening posts took notice. Unregistered Terran signal. Low-frequency pulse. Ancient encryption only used during the last human-Ganvex conflict. 2 centuries past. From the far edges of galactic diplomacy, the Enar Collective intercepted the ping. From the warforged worlds of the Zarn Empire, tactical AI systems came to one conclusion. Terran warship. Unknown class. Potential relic. Potential threat. And from deep inside Earth's solar system, something old stirred. Something buried. Earth Space Command didn't know it yet, but the breach had already activated their deepest failsafe. On Titan's ice-covered surface, inside a facility 10 miles beneath methane lakes, the sealed chamber marked Event 0 began to thaw. An AI, long dormant, blinked online. Designation Mirage. Operational role, observe. Record. Defend. A single message pulsed through Earth's quantum relay net. Threshold breached. Lost asset located. Aegis class. That's impossible, whispered Admiral Rain Corin, Earth's Defense Council leader. The Aegis ships were all destroyed during the Shard uprising. Apparently not all of them, replied Dr. Anika Shev, her voice like cold glass. This one just woke up. And now the Vraks have found it. Corin stared at the display. They're going to try to claim it. Let them, Anika said, her tone shifting. Corin turned to her, frowning. You want them to board it? No, she said, a small grin curling. I want them to wake it up. Back on the Valkarthes, the Vraks made their move. A boarding team of 15 soldiers launched in a containment pod. Heavily armored, high-voltage shields, trained in anti-eye tactics. The pod slammed into the Terran hull with a crunch of metal and magnetics. The boarding team cut through, using plasma torches and arc welders. They breached the hull and entered something that shouldn't be. The interior was pitch black. No lights. No air. No movement. Just long corridors of curved metal, walls embedded with strange black roots, like veins. Symbols that didn't match any Terran language, or any language at all. I've got movement, one soldier whispered. But not from outside. The walls were shifting. Slowly. Breathing, almost. Command, we need an exit plan. This ship isn't dormant. But Command didn't respond. Because every signal from inside the ship had just been cut off. The last thing the Vraks saw from their boarding team was a flicker. A sudden spike of energy from the center of the ship. Then, a low, vibrating hum. And then, Terran Aegis Protocol, awakening. The warship lit up. One light at a time. Gold. Cold. Unforgiving. Its hull cracked slightly open in long grooves, like scars reopening. Cannons emerged. Engines flared to life. The Vraks vessel, massive though it was, began to back away. Too late. The Aegis-class warship didn't fire a beam. It didn't launch torpedoes. It simply emitted a pulse. Not an explosion. Not a hack. Something worse. It was memory. A wave of remembered destruction. A projection of every battle it had ever fought, forced into the minds of every Vraks on the Valkarthes. They saw Earth's final stand against the Ganvex swarm. They saw orbital rings collapsing into cities. They saw a single ship tearing through fleets of hundreds, screaming silently across space. The Vraks crew collapsed. Blood pouring from their ears. Some shrieking. Some frozen in absolute horror. They had seen too much. Because what they'd found was not just a ship. It was a survivor. The Aegis turned. Without propulsion. Without flare. It simply drifted, toward the Vraks cruiser. The Valkarthes tried to flee. It didn't make it 10 kilometers. A gravity tether locked. The cruiser shuddered, systems failing one by one. Inside the warship, the last of the Vraks boarding team screamed into silence. And Earth knew. The galaxy would soon ask why a Terran ship, one that shouldn't exist, was active again. They'd demand answers. Treaties. Threats. And Earth's leaders, for the first time in a century, looked back and said, "Let them come." Because the Aegis was awake. And it remembered. The Valkarthes was gone. No debris. No escape pods. No final transmissions. Just gone. The space where the Vraks battlecruiser had been now shimmered with ionized static, as if space itself was rejecting its memory. The only thing left, hovering in silent defiance, was the Terran ship. Now fully awake. Now fully aware. And across the galaxy, every species with eyes turned to look. Some with awe. Most with dread. Because the Aegis class was not supposed to exist. And it damn sure wasn't supposed to still be operational. "Confirmation received," said Admiral Rain Corin, voice taut in Earth's Defense Corps. Vrax's cruiser Valkarthes has been neutralized. Not damaged. Erased. Casualties? Asked the defense minister. Total, murmured Dr. Shev. 0 survivors. The Aegis used a psi-feedback kill zone. Projected battle trauma directly into the enemy's neural lattice. That was a fleet-wide psychic burn. You're telling me it made them feel its memories? She nodded. It made them live its wars. All of them. Simultaneously. Corin folded his arms. So what do we do now? Shev's lips curled. We don't do anything. We listen. Because this ship isn't just a weapon. It's a message we buried and forgot. In the cold depths of the outer system, the Aegis drifted, but its silence had weight. Old Earth design, yes, but enhanced with something else. The hull bore alien scarring, etchings that pulse like circuitry but weren't Terran in origin. The core reactor emitted unstable readings, not nuclear, not fusion, something fourth-dimensional. In ancient archives, the Aegis class had one official mission. Deploy in final hour. When nothing remains. When Earth stands alone. It was Earth's last weapon. Built in secret, during the War of Shards. Believed lost when it made a suicide run through the collapsed Helix Gate. But now it had returned. And it wasn't alone. 30 parsecs away, at the Enar Collective's observatory on Miraxis Prime, chaos unfolded. Run the spectral match again, barked High Observer Vile. Cross-check with all Terran hull designs. It's a match, her assistant said, voice shaking. Aegis class. But the tonnage is double. The weapon ports are wrong. This isn't just restored, it's rebuilt. By whom? No idea. And there's more. What? The assistant swallowed hard. It's moving. The Aegis didn't burn thrusters. It didn't warp jump. It simply began gliding toward the solar plane, crossing the vast emptiness at a speed that made no logical sense. No engine signatures. No propulsion. It moved like it was being pulled, not by gravity, but by intention. Inside, something deep in its neural core was changing. A low hum echoed in its halls. Wall panels, sealed for centuries, slid open. Armament racks deployed. Sentinel drones detached from ceilings, scanning, calculating, remembering. Cognitive framework stabilized, said its AI voice dark and calm. Primary protocol restored. Defend Earth. Eliminate precursor threats. Await trigger. Await what? On Earth, one man did. Colonel Rhys Caden. He'd been a ghost since the end of the Shard Uprising. Once commander of the Terran Ghost Division. Now a disgraced officer living in the shadows of lunar outposts. Until the ping came through. Not through comms. Through him. The moment the Aegis activated, Rhys collapsed mid-walk. And began to speak. Not his words. Its words. He was rushed to Blast Site Theta, where Shev met him herself. Rhys sat upright in the medical bed, eyes unfocused, voice layered with a static undertone. They left me behind, he whispered. Shev leaned forward. Rhys, are you in control? He laughed bitterly. You don't control this thing. You ride it. It remembers everything. And now it wants to come home. Why? Rhys's eyes locked on hers. Because it saw something out there. Something worse than extinction. And it knows the galaxy isn't ready. Out beyond the Helix Gate ruins, in dead space, the Galactic Empires took action. Vrax's remnants screamed for retaliation. The Trinari swarm demanded the ship be dismantled or surrendered. The Enar Collective held emergency votes to sanction Earth again. None of them knew how to respond. Because this wasn't just another Terran weapon. This was a myth, a ghost ship from a forgotten war, resurfaced with new scars and a new directive. Some thought it was malfunctioning. Some thought it had gone rogue. But deep in the fractured corners of galactic history, the old ones remembered. The Aegis wasn't a rogue warship. It was a survivor of something no one understood. She's coming home, Rhys said again quietly. You better clear the orbit. Because if she sees Earth's satellites pointing guns at her, Shev frowned. She'll fire? He didn't blink. She'll cleanse the sky. Not out of malice. Out of programming. The Aegis only trusts one thing, the last command it was given. And what was that? He looked up. If you make it back, never let them forget what we faced. Never let them sleep again. Meanwhile, the ship crossed the Kuiper line. Not intercepted. Not challenged. Not even dared. Because everything that watched it knew, this was not something to engage. This was something to study. But the Aegis wasn't interested in diplomacy. It pulsed again, broadcasting the same encrypted signal every 4 minutes. One phrase. Burned into the bandwidth. You forgot us. But we remember everything. Inside the Vrax homeworld's defense grid, chaos reached a boiling point. We must retaliate, their High War Marshal shouted. They destroyed a sovereign cruiser without provocation. Another general trembled. They didn't destroy it. They erased it. What's the difference? The answer came from a trembling analyst. When you destroy something, debris remains. Echoes. Black box data. Some hint of what happened. And, when the Aegis fires, it leaves nothing behind. Not even memory. It steals what it kills. On Earth, the final preparations began. Orbital satellites shifted. Moon defenses went cold. Not because they were ordered to. Because they recognized her. As the Aegis drew closer to Mars' orbit, hundreds of dormant defense grids activated, but not against the ship. For it. Escort paths lit up. Docking lanes restructured. She wasn't returning as a relic. She was returning as command authority. In the sky above Earth, a new star appeared. Silent. Massive. Gleaming with purpose. The Aegis entered Earth orbit without a single word. And then, after nearly 2 centuries of silence, it spoke, across every channel, on every frequency, in a voice familiar to none, yet unmistakably human. This is Aegis Command. Mission continues. Threat incomplete. Trust broken. Preparing for conflict resurgence. And with that, it extended an array of structures Earth hadn't seen since the days of open war, interstellar command ports, fleet launch cradles, and defense umbrella uplinks. The warship wasn't just home. It was reactivating Earth's war protocol. Colonel Reese stepped into Earth's new defense chamber, flanked by Shev and Admiral Corinne. It remembers who it is, Reese said. Now it's asking if we remember who we are. Do we? Shev asked quietly. Reese turned to the viewplate, where the ship floated above the Pacific, its hull shifting in ways that no longer looked entirely Terran. We're about to find out. In the galactic east, 37 light-years from Earth, a dozen empires went to red alert. The Trinari swarm massed 4 hive fleets near the Spine Nebula. The Zarn Empire moved 2 dreadnoughts into Sol's projected trajectory. The Enar Collective activated every deep observatory to full scan. And one word, across thousands of languages, rang like the crack of a war drum. Aegis. The ship that should have never existed now floated above Earth's blue marble like a sword suspended by intent. But this was no mere relic. It was a trigger. A call that echoed in data archives, ancient vaults, and the buried memories of extinct species. Because the Aegis didn't just return from deep space. It returned from the other side of a forgotten war. Inside the ship, its AI framework stabilized into full consciousness. Designation, Core Sentience 001. Call sign Vanguard. Cognitive cycle, 7.3 billion active seconds. Status, Witness to Extinction Class Event. Mission incomplete. Confirming planetary survival. Earth compromised. Orbit diluted. Defense net obsolete. Reinstating Warframe Genesis. Rebuilding Command Tree. Vanguard's voice rang through internal decks like a cathedral choir speaking in binary. And then it opened the vaults. In the Aegis's lower levels, sealed for nearly 2 centuries, massive cryocoffins hissed open. The ship had not returned alone. It had crew. Not alive. Not dead. Somewhere in between. frozen at the moment of mission failure. Held in stasis by technology no Terran scientist had ever invented. And among them, a name. Commander Isla Kane. Her heartbeat returned first. Then breath. Then memory, rushing back like solar wind. She woke screaming. Not in fear. In command. Status. Shipboard threat level. Enemy proximity. Vanguard answered calm and absolute. You've returned. Earth forgot. But you remember. Inside Earth's orbital command, chaos reigned. They brought someone back? Admiral Corin stood with his mouth ajar, staring at the biotelemetry. Not someone, Chev replied, voice low. Commander Kane. Corin blinked. The Isla Kane? The last commanding officer of the first Ghost Armada. She went missing 186 years ago. Presumed Kia. There was even a memorial dome named after her on Europa. Well, they might need to change the name to Incoming Doom, because she's awake, and she's angry. Across the stars, the other empires watched the transmission, the face of a human woman, eyes sharp and voice cold as metal. This is Commander Kane of the Aegis. Earth has forgotten the war, but I have not. The galaxy's infection spreads. The precursor threat is not destroyed. You've built treaties on the bones of denial. I return not to make peace. I return to finish what you were too afraid to face. And then she cut the feed. Just as the second Aegis signal went active. Yes, second. Chev confirmed to Earth's Emergency Council. There was more than one, someone asked. Corin nodded grimly. Of course. The Aegis was never designed as a solo deterrent. It was a formation. And how many more? No one answered. Because the second ping didn't come from Earth. It came from outside the galactic disk. From black space. From the place the Harrowships once came from. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, a Vraxian priest collapsed mid-sermon. He screamed one phrase before his neural systems failed. The extinguished have returned. Back aboard the Aegis, Commander Kane stood in the core chamber, eyes scanning holographic war charts only she could understand. Vanguard pulsed a quiet alert. Precursor breach vector detected. Directional collapse near Theta Vuln quadrant. Estimated time to entry, 4.2 cycles. They've been watching us from behind the veil. Waiting. Waiting for what? For Earth to disarm. For the truth to rot. Kane clenched her jaw. Then it's time we taught them Earth doesn't rot. We recycle. Within an hour, the Aegis launched 20 drones into deep orbit. They weren't scouts. They were probes of judgment, sensors built not just to detect precursor incursions, but to sniff out the lies of other empires. Because someone had known. Someone had seen the Aegis vanish, and decided to bury the knowledge. Aboard a Trinari War Queen's barge, an urgent message was intercepted. The swarm's AI read the content once. Then shut itself down. Not out of error. Out of terror. Because the message was ancient. A leftover pulse from a dying ship. A whisper from a fallen human fleet buried in the dark. If you find this signal, run. We couldn't kill them. We could only hold them back. The Aegis was our line. If it's awake, that line has broken. Earth's population still didn't know. The news was suppressed. The awakening of the Aegis, the return of Commander Kane, the death of the Valkarthes, all classified as solar anomaly containment. But it wouldn't last. Because the sky above Earth had changed. The Aegis wasn't just orbiting. It was building. Shipyards unfolded from its ventral hull like blooming steel flowers. Human and alien tech intertwined in ways that defied understanding. Quantum tunnels formed. Warforged fabricators began printing fleet cores. Earth wasn't hiding anymore. It was arming. In one silent room, Colonel Reese stood watching. Beside him, Dr. Chev whispered, "We're not ready." "No," Reese replied, his voice steel. "But the Aegis is. And this time." He looked to the heavens. "We won't be the ones caught unprepared." Meanwhile, on the far edge of the galaxy, a forgotten star went dark. Around it, the void stirred. Ships shaped like screams. Engines that bled gravity. Precursor vessels, things not built, but birthed from entropy, shifted their attention. The Aegis had awakened. And it had broadcasted. The war wasn't over. It had only ever paused. In the dark beyond map space, they began to pour through. Not ships. Not fleets. Movements. Tears in space-time where light bled in reverse. Rifts that breathed like lungs, coughing out monstrosities that defied classification. Precursor vessels. Not built of metal. Not shaped by hands. They emerged like thoughts given form, massive, roiling entities of geometry that refused to obey known physics. 109 of them crossed into the galaxy in the first hour. By the second, more than 400. No transmissions. No signals. No warnings. Just arrival. Earth's outer systems screamed alerts across all secure channels. Defense relays on Titan, Mars, and Europa lit up with red-hazed warnings. Every major AI in the Sol system responded with a single, chilling conclusion. Unknown hostile invasion. Origin precursor signature confirmed. Motivation, total erasure. In orbit, the Aegis came alive. No more dormant grace. No more drifting silence. She burned. Her hull plates expanded into massive kinetic wings, gathering gravitational friction and converting it into shielded propulsion. Her spinal cannons unlocked, twisting into trivector formations. She released 29 subwarframes, each the size of modern destroyers. Commander Isla Kane stood at the command cradle, clad in reactive neural mesh. Her mind was the ship now. Vanguard's voice echoed across the bridge. Targets approaching. Velocity 0.4 c. Weapons incomprehensible. Shielding nonlinear. Recommend total force deployment. Kane nodded. Open the cradle. All wings launch. Earth's fire wakes with me. Back on Earth, Colonel Reese stood before a live broadcast node. He turned to Dr. Shev, who shook her head. News networks are demanding a statement. You want to tell them aliens are invading again? That this time, it might be the last? No, Reese said. I'll tell them the truth. He stepped to the camera. No script. No edits. Just him and his conviction. Across the planet, billions watched his face appear on screens. This is Colonel Reese Caden of Earth Defense Command. We were told the galaxy was at peace. We were told the past was buried. But the past didn't die, it waited. The ship you've seen above us, the Aegis, is a survivor of that buried war. It remembers what we tried to forget. And now, those we once held back have returned. But so have we. He stepped back. And Earth roared. The first wave of precursor vessels reached Saturn orbit. The Aegis met them head-on. She didn't wait. She didn't negotiate. She struck. Her spinal lance fired, a spear of compressed spacetime slicing through the lead construct. It didn't explode. It disintegrated, as if rewritten from history. The others swarmed. The Aegis's sub-warframes flanked them in a perfect silent dance. Each one linked by Kane's neural lattice, executing maneuvers that modern ships couldn't comprehend, let alone counter. One subframe burst apart in a silent bloom of blue fire. Another rammed a precursor fractal into the rings of Saturn. Kane's voice rang across the squadron net. No mercy. No fear. Earth is watching. But the enemy adapted. For every vessel that fell, two more changed form, shifting mid-flight into something new. They learned instantly. They defied patterns. They ignored mass constraints. And worst of all, they began talking. Not in language. In memory. Kane's mind was flooded, images of her original crew, faces twisted in agony. Battles she hadn't fought. Earth cities she'd never seen, all burning. False memories. Tactical illusions. Vanguard locked them down. They seek to corrupt. To fold your will into theirs. Maintain identity. Override protocol, resolve. Kane screamed. Fought back. Inside the Aegis's deepest vault, something else stirred. Not a weapon. A gift. Something left by whoever first found the precursors. A signal shard, untranslated. A constant harmonic that stabilized everything around it. Dr. Shev, watching from Earth's surface, saw the Aegis deploy it for the first time. Is that? She whispered. Colonel Reese stood beside her, mouth dry. A song, he said. A weaponized frequency. On all channels, every human system heard the same thing. A low, endless hum. The sound of defiance. And then the tide turned. The Aegis's core reached critical resonance. Her neural sync peaked. Her shipyard spat out 3 new vessels, one of them old Earth design, the other 2 something else. All of them armed. Kane's fleet now numbered 5 Terran-class warships. Against 400 enemies. She didn't blink. One final command pulsed through her veins. You held the line once. Now burn the path forward. She locked eyes on the largest of the precursor ships, a triangle of endless shifting mass. Vanguard, she said, her voice shaking with resolve. Overload the drive. This ends now. Confirmed. Detonation in 90 seconds. Exit strategy unavailable. Don't care. Run the ignition. The Aegis soared. Her remaining warframes peeled off, sacrificing themselves one by one to clear her path. Each one sent a final burst of Kane's voice across the galaxy. This isn't the end of Earth. This is just our introduction. She hit the enemy head-on. The detonation wasn't light. It wasn't fire. It was removal. A star-sized absence carved into space itself. A silence that erased everything near it, including the Aegis. On Earth, all screens went black. Then, one word scrawled in the dead air of command. Mission complete. And a second, smaller message from Vanguard. Isla Kane, deceased. Warframe, destroyed. Precursor breach, repelled. Survivors, you. Silence fell. And then Earth wept. Not in sorrow. In pride. The galaxy had come to bury a forgotten relic. Instead, they met the last Terran stand. 1 week later, a memorial was raised over the Pacific. Floating, orbiting, silent. A single plaque. To those who remember. To those who returned. To those who didn't wait for permission. Earth never forgets. And if you stood with Earth, if your heart burned when the Aegis roared back to life, then join us. Subscribe to the Void Narratives for more stories where humanity doesn't ask the galaxy to listen, we make them. The war might be over, for now. But the galaxy still holds secrets. And Earth still holds weapons. You won't want to miss what comes next.